Hello students, welcome to the next lecture from chapter 5. Here uh, we are going to study the second part in the PCB design, that is printed circuit board design. In the previous lecture we have seen some basic things about the PCB, like what is a laminate, what is plating, etching, what are the components, what are the pads, traces, vias, what are the layers, then what is the crucial part of these things, the jumper, solder mask, multi-layer PCB, different design issues we have seen there. Okay, and uh, what are the steps in the PCB design? Like first apply the photoresist on the conductive surface, then place the negative image of the artwork in the signal trace, then expose the artwork to ultraviolet light, use proper etching technique to remove the unwanted photoresist, do the drilling, do the soldering of the component, then make the visual inspection of the components and soldering quality, replace loose component if any and do soldering, remove spreaded solder if any, test PCB using standard test signal setup, do environmental testing and do quality checking. So these are the different here with the diagram I have shown different steps in the PCB designing. So this is the film, negative film generated there. This is the raw material where you are having copper clad. First you are making the drilling there, then apply the copper in whole barrels, then apply the photosensitive material to the developed selected areas from the panel, etching, solder coat, silk screen. So these things we have seen. Then we have seen what are the requirements of the PCB design. So there are four basic things are there. First is the mechanical design, second is the electrical design, third is the functional design, and fourth is the environmental design. So these four requirements we will see in this lecture. So the first one, the mechanical design. So what aspects you have to consider while designing the PCB? What should be the size of the PCB and what should be the shape of the PCB? So according to the design, according to the requirement of your product, you have to decide the size and shape of the PCB, isn't it? For example, in case of mobile, you have to go for the rectangular shape you have to go there, and then you have to reduce the size as possible, as much as possible. Okay, so size and shape will be decided by the requirement of your product. Then location and mounting of the components, how you are going to mount the components. For example, some specific components are to be kept at the end of the PCB, like regulator ICs related to your if there is a any small regulator IC which is going to control the input voltage, or battery, how you are going to connect the battery, to which side of the PCB you are going to connect the battery. So according to that you have to decide where you are going to put your components. Then the third part in the mechanical design is the shielding of the equipment or board. How you are going to provide the shielding to the board, that is also the mechanical design requirement. And then appropriate fitting of PCB within an enclosure. So you are going to decide what should be the size of the enclosure and how you are going to put or how you are going to fit that PCB in your enclosure. For example, you can take the example of the CPU. So in the CPU you are having number of components or number of functional parts present in the CPU. So you have to put the appropriate slots there for different PCBs, for motherboard, then for memory card slot, then for add-on cards, for different drivers you are having different cards. So how you are going to put those PCBs? If you have seen memory card, RAM memory card, if you are going to increase the RAM of your PC, or if you are going to increase the RAM of your laptop, then there are separate slots are available there. Then they are manufacturing that PCB according to the requirement of your laptop or your PC. So where you are going to fit your PCB, that is going to decide the size of the PCB there. Okay, then next is the electrical design requirements of your PCB. So in the electrical design, these are the different aspects. First is the selection of the components. So naturally, what are the capacitors, resistor, what is the value of the resistor, how much will be the size of the resistor. So appropriate selection of the components. Then proper interconnection of the components. So definitely you want to use, you have to connect various components in the circuit. Suppose you are going to use one capacitor and one resistor for a particular part of your circuit. You will put the capacitor somewhere at the far end because it is a bulky one, and then you are going to adjust the capacitor such that it will just fulfill the empty space there. But then you have to connect that resistor to the capacitor, and there comes the proper interconnections there. Okay, so you have to do the proper interconnections there. Wiring is nothing but the traces on the PCB. Fitting, how you are going to mount it on the particular thing. Then distribution of the that may be the power, how you are going to divide the, how you are going to actually give the power line, you are going to run the power line on the PCB. And finally the protection, how you are going to protect the PCB from various hazards. So according to that, you have to design your PCB. Functional design requirements. So first part in the functional design is the human engineering accessibility. Suppose you have designed a particular PCB for a particular device or your product. Then afterwards there might be the need to modify it or to service it. So for that, it should be easily accessible to the person who is going to handle it. So that is the first functional design requirement. Second is maintainability. If you have to repetitively do something about your circuit, then that should be properly maintained. That is the maintainability. And third one is the reliability. Wherever you put it, it should not be failed. It should not be failed because of some reasons. That is nothing but the reliability. So you have to consider functional design requirements when you are designing the PCB. Then environment design requirements. What are the environment design requirements? These consisting of different environmental effects on the PCB. So what are the different effects? Shock and vibration. So if it is a portable one, it should withstand shocks and vibrations. Then temperature and humidity. Excess temperature, or if there is excess humidity when you are going in the humid area, coastal area, definitely you are facing the problem of the humidity. So that may affect your PCB internal circuitry. Okay, if the internal circuitry is humid, then it is going to short circuit somewhere, and that may cause the problem to your circuit. So that should be immune to that humidity. Then dust and fungus, that may occur to your PCB. So many times you might have seen there is a thing called as araldite. Araldite is a type of the adhesive, or it's an insulator which is put on the PCB such that it will not move any. So it is going to protect your all the components from many things, from humidity, from dust, from shocks. So like that you are going to do many things about the PCB. Then operating conditions in space, ground, or in underwater. So these are the different environmental design requirements. Whenever you are going for manufacturing or designing the PCB, you have to consider all these aspects there. So for that, such requirements you have to consider there. Okay. Then what are the different elements you have to consider there when you are going to design the. So again, these are again design aspects of the PCB. What things you have to consider when you are designing the PCB? So the first thing is, here is type of the circuit. The type of the circuit may be analog, that may be digital, or that may be mixed circuit, analog and digital. So depending upon that, you have to design the PCB. In case of the analog, you might have to protect it from high voltages. In case of the digital, you might have to protect it from, say, frequency interference. And for analog and digital mixed circuit, you have to separate out analog part and digital part, so that there will not be reflection of the digital part into the analog one, and that is going to give you false reading. To avoid that, you have to separate analog circuit and digital circuit. Then the second part is board dimensions. What should be the length, what should be the width of the board. Third is board thickness. Fourth is the type of the PCB, single-sided or double-sided PCB. Then fifth is the number of layers. How many layers are there? I have told you that there are multi-layer PCBs are also present. One power layer, ground layer, signal layer 1, signal layer 2, top layer, bottom layer. So you can have n number of layers. Then the next one is the layer thickness. It is basically decided by the current requirement of your PCB. If your PCB requires to handle more current, the layer thickness should be more. Then the next one is the supply and ground layer thickness. What should be the thickness of the supply layer and ground layer? Definitely this is also very important, because the supply layer has to source the current to all the circuit elements, all the traces which are present on your PCB. For that you are using, for that you have to decide supply and ground thickness. The next one is number of mounting holes and hole dimensions. How many mounting holes are required for your PCB, and what should be the dimensions of the holes? That is the another element you have to consider for the design of the PCB. And the last one is mounting technique. Whether you are going to mount it vertically, horizontally, you are going to mount it on the heat sink, you are going to mount it on another PCB. So number of things are considered there. Okay. Then the next one is artwork. Okay, artwork is like you are doing the layout of the PCB, which will be printed, imprinted on that bare copper clad, and then you are going to convert it into PCB. So what are the rules? Instead of requirements, I can say that what are the different rules you are going to consider when you are doing the artwork. Okay, so the first rule is no sharp right angle bends or conductors when spacing is closer than 0.012 inch. So normally you should avoid sharp bends there. Second is use circular pads for all pads. So normally for pads or VRs you have to use circular pads, except for pin 1 it is a square. So this is a rule. You cannot have square pads present there on the PCB. It is reserved for pin number 1 for the IC or any connector. Pin number 1 will only have the square, rest all other parts are circular one. Then the third one is all signal traces must originate or end at a pad. Okay, means if this is one pad and if this is another pad, then you cannot have it like this. It is not allowed. Instead of that, you have to give the trace like this. Okay, you cannot have square one. So this right angle bends are not available, means T sections, T connections are not permitted. like that. Okay, you can have it directly between among different pairs. Hmm? Because that is going to create different parasitic parameters on your PCB, so you have to avoid the bending there. So instead of that, you have to directly keep the traces between two pairs. Okay, then these are permitted on power and ground wiring only. Means T means this part. So this, so power line can be moving to another pad like this. Only for power and ground wiring T's are permitted. Then all power and ground traces must be minimum of 0.5 inches. Means for the power and ground traces, the thickness should be more. Okay, the thickness should be more because they are going to draw more current. They are going to the current which is passing through these traces is definitely more as compared to the signal traces. So the width is more. And last one is maintain consistent orientation of similar components on the card. Okay, like diode, transistor. It is better if you do it in that way. So if you have placed a transistor as emitter, collector on the upper side, emitter on the lower side, and base on the left side, then put all the transistors in the same way only. Okay, that is easy to trace out. If you move the orientation of the transistor in a different way, then it is difficult for you yourself only to understand the circuit. Then next, now about the silk screen we are going to place on the PCB. So for that, what are the different rules of the artwork are required, that is given there. Component locations must indicate the following. So what it should do, it should give you the outline of the component. Outline of the component will give you the actually exact it will give you exact information about the size of the component. The outline must be present there. That will help you assembling the PCB. So whenever you are going to put the component on it, you will not make any you will not meet any mistake if the outline is present there. Like for some high value capacitors, the diameter will be more. So if a proper outline is present there, you will know that the size of the capacitor is more there, and then you will choose that appropriate component and you will not make any mistake like that. Then component identification code from the schematics must be present on your screen. So in the schematic you have given the component identification like T1 transistor 1, C1 capacitor 1, R2, R13, R14. These are identification codes given to the components. So that is present in your diagram. The same codes must be present on your PCB. This is helpful for testing of the PCB. So whenever you test the PCB, you are matching it with the schematic diagram. So the identification code should be same from the schematics. Then orientation of the components. Orientation of the components is notch or pin 1. Like for the transistor, we are having the notches present there. Like for transistor, you are having the notch like this. Then the same thing should be present there. That will give you the emitter of the transistor. So where how to exactly place the transistor. Okay, so for that you must know the orientation. You have to show it in the artwork on the screen, that must show you. Similarly, whenever you are putting the IC socket, where should be the first pin number 1 of the IC. So for that also you have to put appropriate pin there, showing that this is the pin 1 of the IC. Okay, so that is the orientation of the component. Then diodes must have anode and cathode marked. Anode and cathode of the diode must be marked there. Then the next one is the this polarity for the capacitor. For the polarized capacitor means your electrolytic capacitors are polarized capacitors. So for those capacitors, what you need is you have to give the polarity, that is there is a plus minus sign is present there in those capacitors, so you should have the appropriate polarity shown in the artwork. Then card name. Many times what happens in the product, there are number of PCBs are there. Like some PCB will be power PCB, some PCB will be used for the control circuitry, power circuitry, then something for generation of the waveform, like that. So according to that you are giving the names to the card. If it is given, it is easy for you to locate it or to place it properly in the enclosure. So card name is also, there must be card name on the artwork. Okay, next, number of components to read like a book. Book means whenever you are reading something from your book, you are starting from the left side, go to the right side, and you are starting from the topmost corner and you go to the bottom left corner, bottom right corner. So like that, whenever you are numbering the components on your circuit, in your circuit, you have to number it like this. Okay, so these are some rules which are given for the artwork. Then we are going to the layout. Okay, now why you need to have a good layout for the PCB? Okay, why you need a good layout for the PCB? So the first part is it will have less effect on non-zero trace impedance. So trace should not create impedance, because you know that for every conductor also it is having some opposition to the current, so it is also acting as impedance. So how you put the trace there, according to that you are having the impedance present in the circuit. So that is the first thing. Then avoid coupling of signals from one circuit to another. Avoid coupling of the signals from one circuit to another through parasitic capacitance and radio transmission. So we have to avoid the coupling of the circuit signals from one circuit to another because of the parasitic. What is the parasitic capacitance? Actually the capacitor is not present there, but because of the different traces present there, the capacitance is present there, and that is called as a parasitic capacitance. And because of the radio transmission, coupling may take place. Then what are the different methods used for the layout? One is a simple method, where of course this were used in the old days. It is using grid printed paper, where you are using the pencil to make the layout. And second one is the puppets. Puppets is actually a die cut, a die which is having a transparent layout, where you are having the actual you are having the trace of different components. So outline of the components you can make there on the puppet, and using that you can duplicate it. You can duplicate it on your printed paper. So making the PCB layout using simple, that is grid printed paper. Grid printed paper means it's like a graph paper, so it will give you the proper dimensions there. It is a tedious job, but if you go for puppet, it is going to make it is making your job more easy. Okay, then what are the rules for making the layout for the PCB? The first part is you should have the final circuit diagram ready there. It should be confirmed that what is your final circuit diagram, then only you can use it. The second one is you have to divide the final circuit into functional subparts. Why you are having the subparts? Because it improves the functional reliability. What do you mean by reliability? I told you that instead of having whole circuit, If I divide it in different parts, then I can easily understand the circuit and I can check the circuit. So if this is your first part of the circuit and this is the second part of the circuit, what you are going to do, it is easy for you to check your circuit, or to for testing and servicing it is easy. So normally dividing it in sub parts is a good choice for the layout. Third, develop the layout according to the direction of the signal flow. So normally don't mix the circuits. That is first part of the circuit, then second part of the circuit, and then the third. Instead of third, it is fourth part of the circuit, and then it is followed by the third part. No, don't do that. Develop the layout according to the direction of the signal flow only. First the filter, then amplifier, then comparator, and then final stage. According to that only you put the layout. Don't mix the things. Okay, that is the third rule for the layout. Fourth is, of course, you have to always put the larger size components on the layout, and then the space between the large size components can be filled with the smaller one. So normally you are putting the capacitor, inductor first, and then you go for transistor. First, the very first component you have to put is IC, then the transistor, then the capacitor, and then finally you can put your resistors there. So in that way you are going to ensure that the space is utilized properly. Otherwise you are going to unnecessarily waste the space on the PCB. Then all the components are placed in such a manner that the desoldering of the other component can be easily achieved. Okay, so they should not be mixed with each other. Otherwise what will happen, they will create the problem when you are going to desolder it. So many times you have to do the debugging of the PCB, or you have to do the servicing of the PCB. So in case of the servicing, you have to remove the component and replace it with similar component. In that case, when you are desoldering it, the component, changing the component can be easily achieved when you have placed component in a separate way. They should not be mixed with each other. Or to remove one component, like if I want to remove the resistor, I have to remove the capacitor also. Don't do that. Keep the capacitor different and resistor also different in the circuit. Okay. Then properly handle power connections that are taken from distinct connector locations. So power connections also you have to handle properly. Otherwise what will happen, that is going to damage something, or that is going to create a problem in your PCB. Next, the interconnections shown must consider actual space aspects. Means whenever you are making some interconnections between different pads, they should consider how much is the space present there. Otherwise somewhere the interconnections are very crowded, somewhere they are very sparse, and that is going to not serve the purpose. What will happen, that is going to unnecessarily waste the space on the PCB. Okay, so these are some layout rules are there. So we have seen artwork, we have seen the layout for the PCB. Next, PCB size. Okay, so whenever you are deciding the PCB size, which are the factors which are going to decide the PCB size? So the first one is the functional complexity. How complex the function of their product, according to that the PCB size is decided. Efficient testing and servicing, upgradation and modification, and dimension aspects. So in case of the functional complexity, whenever you are having the PCB size issues, for the functional aspects, if more circuitry has to be realized on the PCB, the PCB size will larger. Hence, more space is required for interconnections, which in turn results increase the disturbances because longer interconnections are more susceptible to disturbances. So if your interconnections are more, then it will pick up some external signal and those are more susceptible to disturbances. If the PCB is too small, then the cost increases due to external interconnections and connectors. So if you are making the PCB very small, then it is going to make the external connections more. Okay, so depending upon the functional complexity, you have to decide the PCB size. Efficient testing and servicing. For efficient testing and servicing, smaller PCB sizes are more often preferred. It is the less the size of the PCB, the more it is easy to test it and service it. Third one is upgradation and modification. In normal practice, more than 90% area is utilized for entire circuit and provides 10% area for upgradation and modification. So normally 90% PCB is completed or 90% space on the PCB is filled and 10% is used for the future use. So if you want to expand it in the future, you can expand it in that 10% pass, not more than that. The last one is dimensional aspect. The PCB size can also be decided by an exterior design requirements, that is for an ultra slim mobile, very small compact PCB size must be used. So exterior design aspects, so like for ultra slim mobile, very small compact PCB size must be used, isn't it? So depending upon your product, the dimensions of the PCB will be decided. So these are different parameters which will decide the PCB size: functional complexity, efficient testing and servicing, upgradation and modification, and last one is the dimensional aspects. Okay, now we are coming to the main part of the PCB, interconnection parameters of PCB. So what are the different interconnection parameters, or these are also called as um, parameters of the PCB. So actually you are not having these things present there, but because of some inherent things, these properties are present in the PCB. There are, first is the resistive, second is the capacitive, third is the inductance, and fourth is the conductor. These four parameters are present in the PCB. I'm not talking about the components. Components are different, and these are the interconnection parameters of PCB. Okay. Okay. So I will give the first one is the resistance. Resistance, PCB consisting of number of traces. So those traces you can treat it as a resistance also. Next, capacitance. So what is the basic fundamental property of the what is the basic uh, definition of the capacitor? If there is a one conducting plate, okay, so this is one conducting plate and this is another conducting plate, okay, and in between that what you are having, a dielectric material. Here you are having a dielectric material, isn't it? This is the basic definition of the capacitor. Two conducting plates are separated by a dielectric. Okay, two conducting plates are separated by the dielectric. Then how this capacitive effect is present in the PCB? Then there is, so if you consider this as the PCB, okay, so here you are having one trace, and below that also I will show that below track by dotted lines. So this is also the continuous track and this is also the continuous track. So two conducting plates are separated by this PCB dielectric material. So this is one type of the capacitor present there, that is between opposite sides of the PCB. Then on the PCB, so if you consider this as the PCB, what happens? You are having two adjacent connectors present there. Like in the PCB, you are having two separate traces are present side by side. Okay, so here is one trace present, here another trace is present. So this is one conductor and this is another conductor, and in between those two conductors you are having the air. Okay, means here also one capacitor is formed. So this capacitor will work as a these two traces will also work as a capacitor in your circuit, and there will be then unwanted effects of the capacitor present. Then via also we have seen there. So for vias, then those are also going to create the capacitive effect on the PCB. Then the next one is the inductance. So what is an inductor? It's a winding of the simple winding of the wire. You can call it as an inductor. Then definitely there are wiring present on the PCB. So because of the conductor, the inductive effect is present there. Because of the vias, poles, inductance is present there. And the fourth one is conductor, supply conductor, ground conductor, and signal conductor. All the traces are working as the conductors, and because of that, conductor effect is present there. So remember, these are parasitic different values present with the PCB. PCB itself gives you some resistance, itself provides some capacitance, itself provides the inductance and the conductor there. Okay, so these are typical 4 parameters present in the PCB. Okay, so what is the effect of these parameters on the PCB that we are going to see here? The first one is the series inductance. For low frequencies it is not going to create any problem, but for the high frequencies that may be significant. For power connections, a shunt capacitor is added to counter the series inductance of a long trace. Okay, for a long trace, it will act as an inductor. Okay, and then in case of that, if you use the shunt capacitor, it is going to nullify the effect. Then capacitor is having a low AC impedance source. So what will happen? It is having a very low impedance at higher frequency, then that will nullify the effect of the series inductance. First one is the series inductance, then shunt capacitor. The shunt capacitor is present because of wide wires over a ground plane. Okay, so what is the problem with the capacitance? Definitely whenever the capacitor is present, there will be charging and discharging of the capacitor. So RC circuit is small and then the system becomes sluggish. Whenever the capacitor is present in the circuit, it will limit the speed of the circuits, including the digital circuits. It is typically insignificant for low performance circuit. To minimize, place a capacitor from voltage to ground. So if you connect anything another capacitor in the circuit, then what will happen? That will try to reduce the effect of the capacitive effect there. Okay, so that will reduce the effect of the capacitor. What ultimately you want? You want to reduce the value of the capacitor. How you can reduce the value of the capacitor? So if the capacitors are connected in parallel, their value is added. If the capacitors are connected in series, their value will be decreased, isn't it? So you are trying to put another capacitor in series such that that will minimize the capacitor. Next, inductive coupling. That will transform the energy from one circuit component Okay, that will transfer the energy from one circuit component to another through a shared magnetic field, that is the inductive field. Change in current flow through one device induces current flow in other device. Okay, and current flow in one trace induces current in the another trace. Okay, now what happens? So basically, because of inductive effect, the current is flowing through another trace also. Okay, so you know that in the transformer, two windings are present near to each other. So when the current is flowing through one winding, the because of mutual inductance, the effect field is generated in the second inner winding, and that is going to generate the current in the second conductor. Same thing happens with the traces which are running parallelly, and therefore you are not running traces for a long distance. Okay, so minimize long parallel runs of traces. Traces means you can say the wires on the PCB. So minimize long parallel runs of the traces. Then run traces perpendicular to each other. So normally you should have perpendicular traces present there, and then they will not create the inductive coupling. Capacitive coupling. What happens in the capacitive coupling? In the capacitive coupling, transfer of energies in electrical network due to capacitance between circuit nodes. Minimize long traces on adjacent layers with will reduce the capacitive coupling. So for the multi-layer PCB, this is the dominating effect. So for that, minimize long traces, and that will reduce the capacitive coupling. Then ground planes are run between the signals that might affect each other. So this is another good way. You are not having the signal planes. So for the multi-layer PCB, normally they are not having the planes, signal planes one by each other side. Instead of that, those are separated by power plane or ground plane. So especially ground planes are used there between the signals which are going to affect each other. Okay, so this completes your different effect there: resistance, capacitance, inductance, and conductor. Conductors are also going to create a problem. So for that, the um, supply conductor width of the supply ground conductor should be always greater than width of the supply conductor, and that should be also greater than width of the signal conductor. Okay. With this rule, that is either analog or digital, placed on each either single-sided or double-sided PCB, low impedance is obtained between ground and supply conductors by capacitive coupling. Also, when both analog and digital circuitry are to be accommodated on the same PCB, then the complete separation of the corresponding ground conductors is compulsory. This will avoid any current spike from digital part reaching towards the analog part. Okay, so what you are doing? Complete separation of the ground conductors is compulsory for for analog and digital part. Okay, so we have seen that there are different parasitic interconnection parameters are present there. Resistance. Resistance is nothing but the copper tracks have a finite resistivity, and because of that the resistive effect is present there. R is equal to rho L by A. By this formula we can find out the resistance. So it is proportional to the length of the track. Minimize the track length. Then due to temperature effect difference in an electronic equipment, there will be a significantly increased conductor resistance. Okay, then capacitance. For the capacitance is going to affect your circuit badly. So for the capacitance, What are the remedies? Keep the conductor's width W as small as possible. Provide sufficient spacing between two conductors. Run the ground track between the signal conductors. For a broader ground line, the coupling capacitor will be minimum. Top and bottom tracks can be drawn so as to cross each other equivalently. So these will eliminate the effect of these parasitic parameters in the PCB. And one more last point we will see in this capacitor, SMD, surface mounting devices. So here you can see that this is a coin placed here. This is just to give you the how much is the size of the components. So these are the components, and this is the coin which is similar to our 5 rupees coin, okay, or 10 rupees coin. So you can see that this is a very small. The advantage of using the SMD devices is that their size is very small. That is going to reduce the size of your PCB also. So nowadays SMDs are preferred, surface mounting devices. Due to their small size, prototype manufacturing and rework and repair can be difficult and are best performed using specialized techniques specific to this technology. What are the advantages? SMDs have improved performance over through-hole components. The other type of the components are called as through-hole components. Due to their smaller size, shorter internal leads. So what they are having? They are having the smaller size, shorter internal leads, and smaller board layouts. Okay. Then these factors reduce the circuit's parasitic inductance and capacitance. So we have seen that this parasitic inductance and capacitance are affecting the working of the PCB badly. They are resulting in inductive coupling and capacitive coupling, and they will totally down the performance of the PCB. Okay, but if you use SMDs, these effects will be reduced. SMDs can also be more cost effective than the traditional through-hole components due to the smaller board size, fewer board layers, and fewer holes. So naturally it will be cost effective if you see the overall effect there. So these are the advantages. SMDs can also be easier to replace than through-hole components on multi-layer boards. This is because it is very difficult to heat the long hole on a multi-layer board, and it is much easier to heat just the pad and the component terminal for an SMD. Okay. So we have seen these things related to the PCB design. We will stop here. So this is the end of your chapter number 5. In the next lecture we will go through the next chapter. So thank you students.